This is how I'd learn how to use astrology if I had to start all over. And this is coming from a lifelong learner, student of astrology, and a professional business astrologer as well. So today I'm going to be breaking down the exact steps that I would take if I were to learn astrology, and not just learn it, but learn what it is and how to use it in the simplest, most applicable way possible. Learning astrology has changed my life in so many ways, and I think it's really important to go back and really recognize what steps that I would take if I were just getting started, because no matter where you are in your journey, there's still so much to learn. And I think before getting into any of the steps, that is something to embrace, that to learn astrology is to be committed to the process, to be a forever student. No matter how much that you know, there is still so much that you don't know. And so it's not just about amassing knowledge for the sake of amassing knowledge, but really about how can you use what it is that you're learning for a specific goal, whether your goal is to help understand yourself, to understand others, to help others understand themselves. Having a goal and putting it in the lens of having that be your motivation to be committed to continuing to learn astrology will definitely help you to stay on the course, even when things get challenging and get hard. That actually leads me into the very first thing that I would learn if I were just getting started with learning astrology. It is getting clear on the goal that I personally have for my studies. So what is your why? If you're familiar with this as a business owner, what is your why behind your business? Then in the same way, what is your why behind learning astrology? Why do you want to learn what this is? Why do you want to be a part of this community? Why do you want to be committed to the process of translating the stars and the planets and how they interact with each other in order to understand how day-to-day operations work, how to better understand your life or your business or relationships or what have you? It can be so overwhelming to try to tackle astrology as a whole because there's just so much that goes into this field. There's so many different niches and practices and areas of study that trying to tackle it all at once is just going to leave you stuck in an analysis paralysis. So instead, learn how to take a step back, how to take these pieces and make them smaller, make them small enough for you to bite, to chew, to get acclimated before trying to tackle the entirety of the field. So it begins here. It begins before you even pull out any of the charts or doing any analysis. It really starts with getting clear on what is your goal. Why do you want to learn astrology? It's going to make everything else so much easier. So after you have your goal in place, the next thing that I would do from the very beginning is to learn how to read a birth chart. This can be a whole video all on its own, but learning how to read a birth chart is foundational, fundamental. Every astrologer knows how to do this. And even if you are an astrology enthusiast and not an astrologer per se, learning how to read a birth chart is so empowering because now you don't need to rely on other people to tell you how to interpret your chart. You know how to do it yourself. You can always fall back to this. And this is also why I think it's so important to always begin astrology by studying your own chart before diving into examining or studying or analyzing other people's charts. The reason for this is that the energy in the birth chart is always constantly there. Your birth chart is a snapshot of where the planets and the stars were at the time of your birth. So when you're able to get to know this energy, you understand the energy that you always have steady, consistent access to. When you're just getting started with learning astrology, it is so important to begin by just focusing on your own birth chart. So learning how to read a birth chart is so empowering. It's so rewarding. And these are foundational skills that you will always come back to in your astrology studies. From there, with learning how to actually read a birth chart, understanding, okay, like what house system are you using? What do the 12 houses mean? What do the planets mean? How do they interact with each other? What is planetary condition? Then it really goes into learning and memorizing the energy of your big three. In astrology, this is your sun, your moon, and your rising. And I would argue out of all of these, which all three of these placements are incredibly important, but the most important one to know is going to be your rising sign. Now, the rising is created based on what sign is literally rising over the first house at the moment of your birth, which is why timing is such an important aspect to astrology, and having the exact time for things is a really, really big deal. Your rising also dictates the rest of your birth chart. So you can't really know the order of your houses without knowing what sign your rising sign is. And you can't know the correlation of the houses and how that's going to translate within your birth chart overall without knowing the sign that rules your first house, that rules over your rising sign. So learning your big three, really getting intimate with the energies of this also play a really big role. And I would say as well, that learning the energy of your rising sign helps to dictate even the importance of the sun and the moon. Now, the sun and the moon on their own are really important planets to learn, but I would argue that they become more important if your rising sign is in Leo or Cancer. This is because the planets that rule over these signs are part of the big three, making them even more important. So for example, if you are a Cancer rising, your moon sign is going to be more important and more prevalent than it may be for other signs. And then at the same time, if you are a Leo rising, your sun sign is going to play an even more significant role in the importance of the planets within your birth chart. So all of this really goes into learning how to read a birth chart and truly understanding planetary condition, the importance of the planets and the roles that they play based on where they rule over in your own personal chart. Now, this kind of goes hand in hand with the other things that I've already mentioned, but if I were just getting started with learning astrology, I would focus on traditional astrology, regardless of whether I want to have my focus on traditional astrology or modern astrology. The reason for this is that traditional astrology is foundational, and so many people make the mistake of jumping ahead when it comes to learning astrology. They want to just do the thing, but I think it's really important to understand why those rules are set in place. Even though astrology is such an interpretive field, it is designed to be thought and pondered about and to bring new hypotheses into place. But there's also rules that are in place that really help astrology to continue on in this specific tradition. And it's why it's lasted for so long. So understanding where do these rules actually come from? How have ancient astrologers looked at the sky? And how does this play a role in how the field itself has evolved over time is so, so important. And especially when it comes to the question of astrologers or astrology enthusiasts really sharing that information in a global space, especially on online spaces, it is so important to know what school of thought, what school of study you're actually getting your information from. It's not cute to be an astrologer and to say certain things and not be able to say whether you are citing this from traditional or modern astrology. So learning traditional astrology helps you to understand the why behind so many things within astrology. And then, of course, getting this information primarily from text, from reading, from researching. Astrology is such a study-focused. You have to get in there and get into the text and not just make social media your primary source of information in regards to learning about this field. So learning traditional astrology. And then at that point, you want to continue on into, say, modern astrology or evolutionary astrology or some of the other schools of astrology. Starting with traditional astrology helps you to get that foundation in place and makes it a lot easier for you to understand. But if you want my recommendation on which school of astrology to focus on, I'm always going to say traditional astrology. Without traditional astrology, then astrology itself just cannot be. So these are pretty much the absolute foundations that no matter what niche, what field of study that you're in within astrology, that everybody's going to follow. At this point as well, you'll naturally get into a space within your journey of recognizing whether you want to continue on to be an astrologer or continue to be an astrology enthusiast. And there are two different tracks for this, and I think it's important to make that distinction. So an astrology enthusiast is someone that is not an astrologer. I don't just mean you don't do this professionally, but you are not somebody who is committed to the study of astrology. And really, you're just like sharing your thoughts. You're sharing your information. Maybe you're making it easily digestible for people, but you're leaning more so in the entertainment aspect of astrology. Like just sharing it and just like dipping out, right? Whereas an astrologer is somebody that is committed to the study of astrology. So at this point in your journey, once you know how to read a birth chart, you understand the energy of your big three, and you have that foundational aspect to traditional astrology, you can begin to make the decision, do I want to continue to be an astrology enthusiast or do I want to be an astrologer? And if I want to be an astrologer, what kind of astrologer do I want to be? All right, this kind of goes hand in hand. It would be a great time for you to go back and review your goal in mind, your why behind why you want to learn astrology in the first place. But at this point, let's say that you want to continue with learning astrology to start grow and scale your business, and particularly within business astrology. So these next things are going to be really relevant for that, since that is my focus as a traditional business astrologer. And if I were to learn business astrology from the very beginning, these are the exact steps that I would take. So when it comes to starting over and learning business astrology, it is so important to focus on the midheaven. It's part of why I specialize in the midheaven specifically and have so many resources where I've talked about it and will continue to talk about it because it is that important. When it comes to business astrology, your midheaven is your legacy energy. It is what you will always be returning to, and it really is the why behind your business and your career. So focusing on the midheaven as a business astrologer or somebody who wants to learn more about business astrology is so incredibly helpful. This really helps you to align the creation and the building of your business to make sense, to just connect. And your midheaven, because it is your legacy energy, it is what you're going to be best suited to build toward. So this is not dictating what your business should look like in the sense that you should only align your business to the themes and the traits associated with the sign that rules your midheaven, but instead it's really getting clear on the energy that you are best suited to build within your business. This is why I have my Master Your Midheaven course to really break this down, because it really is that important for everyone to understand, whether you're an astrology enthusiast or an astrologer. Focusing on your midheaven helps you to get clear on so much and so many questions within how to actually use astrology within your business. So getting clear on that, following learning about the midheaven, I would actually then take a step and learn about the wealth houses. So the wealth houses are the second house, the sixth house, and the 10th house, which your midheaven may or may not be in if you are using whole sign houses. So learning about your wealth houses helps you to create a plan of action to take to make the message of your midheaven a reality. So, what I mean by this is understanding the energy of your midheaven, right? Getting clear on that. It's like, okay, now how do I like actually take that and do something with it? How do I actually build my business very tangibly by connecting it to my offers, my marketing, my selling strategy, and all of the gears that need to turn in order to make my business a reality? That's where the wealth houses come in at. And from here, you're actually able to not just get clear on how you are designed based on your birth chart to bring these things into reality, but now you can actually create a tangible plan in order to do so in your business. From there, it's really about what I would argue is the most important thing to focus on when you are learning astrology from the very beginning, getting out of your head and into the tangible action of experimenting to actually start applying everything that you are learning in real time. This is why there's such an emphasis on learning the energy of your own chart, getting clear on your goals, understanding the energy of your big three, your midheaven, your wealth houses, because the entire goal of this is not to create knowledge or to gather knowledge for knowledge's sake, but instead to really understand, how do I create this as an asset in my business? How am I actually able to do something with this to create the change that I want to see? You have to take action on it. You have to do something with it and not just read about it in a book, not just listen to someone talk about it on a YouTube channel or a podcast, but to actually get in there, get your hands in the dirt in applying what it is that you're learning. So if you know that your midheaven is in a particular sign, okay, designing your business to invoke the energy of that sign. If you know that your wealth houses are in a specific element, how can you embody that and build a business that embraces your strengths as a leader rather than using astrology as a limiter, as something that is giving you permission to opt out of your own business and your own life? Astrology, no matter what niche that you are focused on, is all about empowering you to be your best self, to understand yourself on a deeper level. So when you're able to do this, then you're going to feel the difference, especially when it comes to applying what you've learned and not just gathering the information and then just sitting on it. And this is also why I have really dedicated my business to helping business owners like you to use astrology to not just start, but grow and scale your online business, because it is so important to understand that there is room for the vision that you have and what you want to create your business from. It's just a matter of learning how it's meant to be designed and what you need to do in order to take action on it. And so if you want even more support from me directly on how to do this, then definitely make sure that you are on my email list. This is where I share even more support around how to use astrology in your business very tangibly. So definitely make sure that you join me over there. I would love to know how this landed for you. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.